I want to say hi to everyone. It's been a while. So it's been a minute since we did Twirl Talk, and it was the perfect opportunity following the USTA Grand Nationals. And I was able to snag our three grand champions. So first of all, I have to say huge thanks to them and congratulations to them. So I want to welcome to the conversation tonight Savannah Miller, who was the US Grand National Artistic Twirl and Solo Champion, Kylie Cates, who's the US National Grand National Champion in Strut, and Sarra, who's the Men's Grand National Champion and 2 and 3 Baton, and also won the Collegiate Championship. So congratulations, you rock stars. How fun is this? Let me go around first. Thank you everyone for joining, because it's fun to be back in the groove and seeing everyone, and especially in a celebratory mood, to be able to celebrate where we're coming from given the last 18 months. Who would have thought that we were able to have a championship, let alone that it was a championship that was just so nicely done and with amazing performances. So Savannah, thank you for being on tonight. It's always a pleasure to see you, and we have so much to talk about. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Are you still on a high?
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't think I've come down yet.
You need to ride that one out for quite a while. Yeah, so that's amazing. Kylie, thank you for coming on tonight. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I feel like being one of the people that worked on kind of like the new music and the new concept of Strut, I feel like it's a rebirth of an event. And for you to be the first time entering it for this organization is just stunning. Like, how do you feel about that?
I was absolutely shocked, and I love that event so much. It's my favorite one by far, and it was such an honor being the first one with that new music.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like it was a whole new thing. And I'm sure I'm prejudiced, but it just felt like it was a whole new rebirth, and you just really encapsulated that beautifully. So it was just such an honor to be able to judge you and to watch that happen. Bauer, what a rock star week. How high are you right now?
Unbelievably. I think I'm still in shock. Even after like the long drive home and the week that I've had so far, it's like, that really happened.
You know, did you have any expectation for anything when you went into it?
So going into like big contests like that, I really just focus on like putting out my best performances, not necessarily worrying about how many cups can I take home. You know what I mean? So I just try to focus on being the best me and celebrating what comes out of it.
Okay, so let's get to the nuts and bolts of that in itself. How did you get everything home?
Oh, that is a great question. Thank goodness we didn't fly. So my parents are super like all about their driving trips. We drive to MBTA Nationals every year. If we can, we drive to USTA Nationals. Every single contest, it's like a Sarra household car trip. So we actually took two cars. I know. We actually took two cars because my sister had to go. We had to go separate ways at the end. So thank goodness, because we ended up packing them into each car. And then we had to drive 6 hours all the way back to Pennsylvania. Wait, no. It was like 14 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know where I got 6 from. Yeah. But we all jammed into the cars and we stuck it out.
Okay, so like the Emmys, all of you, I want to know, like the Emmys and the Oscars and all this stuff, where will these cups reside?
Oh, wait, do you want me to go first?
For you, Bauer, yeah.
Oh, so we have a little entrance right in front of our front door that my regional cups are currently sitting. And I think that we're just gonna have to make like a little section to the side area to display them at.
Kylie, how did you get that gorgeous boot home?
Well, I actually changed my flight to do my command performance, and luckily we got a flight on Southwest, so I was able to get 2 free suitcases. So I was just put it on the plane.
What did baggage claim say? Like, did they question what this was?
No, the lady was just like, put your bag up here. It's like, okay.
Savannah, how did you get yours home?
So luckily my parents live 2 hours north of Daytona Beach. And so I actually stayed with them for a few days. So my mom took one of them and then like Kylie, I flew home with one of them. So normally when I get a cup, it does reside at my parents' house because they kind of have like a whole little room dedicated.
Shrine. Can we just say a shrine?
That my brothers and I have won over the years. So it resides in that room.
Very cool. Well, that's one of those things about like, OPS, as your child starts winning more, you better figure out how to do this and how to get those things there. So let's catch up with you personally first before we talk about like your training and other things like that. So Kylie, where are you and what's next for you from life? Or what's happening with school? When do you leave for school? How is all that and where do you live?
Well, currently I'm at home in Canton with my parents, and then I'll leave August 12th to go back to Arizona, and we start band camp, and school starts around the 18th, I think. So it's back to Arizona and hopefully back to in-person classes.
Oh, yeah. How exciting is that? I just was at our university yesterday for what we do pre-camp, and the sense of exhilaration was just like, it just was extra special. Savannah, what's up for you next? Where are you?
So I am back in Nashville, which is where I've been living for the last year. And not even 2 days after I got back from nationals, I was back to work. So back to teaching cycling and bar classes, which has been so much fun, but just getting ready for next year, which will be my last year competing.
That's really bittersweet to say, but good to hear. Wonderful to hear. Bauer, what's next for you and where are you?
I'm currently in Pennsylvania at my parents' home. I stayed there for the summer. And then, like Kylie, I'll go back for band camp, but my move-in's the 7th. So I'll be flying back to Arizona the 7th and then getting ready for band camp.
Well, those of you that may not know, Kylie and Bauer are at the same school and they were neck and neck in the collegiate competition. And so tell me, on the field or in practice, do you challenge each other? Are you competitive? How does that work, Kylie?
On Mondays, we have like trick Mondays because all the bands and all their sections. So the twirlers are really just on their own, and we just go back and forth trying this hard trick, this hard trick, this hard trick to see who can catch it first. And we really just push each other to be our best.
And Bauer, what about, had you ever trained with Kylie before, or did you just meet each other at school?
We have never actually twirled together, and I actually didn't know Kylie that well. I knew Cassidy from USTA Nationals the year before I transferred schools. So we met at ASU during tryouts, and we actually all went out to Texas Roadhouse after we tried out, and all of the participants got dinner together. So that's where we first met. And then when we actually started going to school and had band camp and stuff, we did the Trick Mondays. And then in the spring semester, we actually set up practice schedules so that we could see each other. Like, we were basically with each other every single day.
So how is go ahead, Bauer, how's your relationship with the band? And do they have any idea the caliber twirlers they get with their band?
So I really like our band because they have a lot of integration within the sections. It's not so much like you're a twirler, so you have to stay within the twirler section. You're a trumpet, you need to stay in the trumpet. They really encourage like friendships among those groups. So I really appreciate that because I've seen other bands where that's not the case. Yeah, so that was really cool. But yeah, so on top of that, we've met like a lot of guard people through that, and they compete at WGI and the guard contest. So I think they can understand the difficulty that goes into what we're performing on the field. So that's really cool.
And Kylie, you come from a high school where you had a great twirling position. Do you feel like you're as appreciated at college as you were in high school?
Yeah, I twirled with my friend Anna in high school, and now I twirl with Bauer and twirled with Cassidy. Sadly, she's gone. But it was just always really fun being able to twirl with a group of people rather than being on your own.
Right. So Savannah, it's football season and you're not on the field. Tell me about that because like obviously I'm a lifer. Like I don't know what it would be because I've never in my life had a football season where I haven't been getting somebody ready for it. How is it for you?
So it's definitely very weird. Not that there's nothing to look forward to like after nationals, but normally coming off the nationals like I had last week, I get excited about the upcoming season, back to school. So it's been a really odd transition for me to go back into more of an adult style lifestyle. But with that, like with COVID, it wasn't a hard transition because nobody was twirling on the field. So I didn't feel it as hard as I'm about to feel it heading into this more normal season. But it's just a change for me. I mean, it's something that we'll all have to go through eventually. And I will always be a Razorback at heart. And so getting to cheer on the new future twirlers there is something I'm really looking forward to.
Well, it's just so fun to know that this quality twirler is on the football field. So let's get back to the nuts and bolts of your events, okay? So Kylie, I'm going to start with you because strut is my passion and the new music with the event. Tell me about the introduction to it. Was it your coach that said, and your coach is Kathy Forsyth, along with other people? Was it the coach's initiation to do strut, or was it you? How did this come about?
So Kathy told me, she's like, they're doing this new thing called Athlete of the Year, and you'll have to do a strut. And I was like, a strut? Like, don't you guys like toss in a strut? And she was like, yeah, but we can do it. I was like, oh, okay, like, why not? So we started just with just the music, just going left, right, left, right. And at first I found it like pretty difficult, but as I kept going, just doing the feet, it really helped me get it. So now every time when I'm warming up, when I'm practicing, I always start with just doing my feet with no baton. And I think that really helps me stay in step.
Oh yeah, 100%. And so tell me the value that you found in this event compared to not doing it before. Did you find qualities within it that helped you grow? How did you find strut an asset to you as a growing twirler?
Yeah, one thing that I've always struggled with is flowing. And with strut, I always had to keep my feet moving left, right. And so even if I felt like I needed to break or something, I had to just keep moving and moving. And I really felt like it helped me with my flow of my baton because I just had to keep going because I couldn't be out of step.
Right. No, that's a really, really good point. And, the whole like artistic, going from rhythmic twirl and freestyle, the ability to pace yourself in time, tosses to move and travel. And for football twirling, band directors go insane when twirlers can't stay in step going down the field. So I think that that's a huge positive to that. Bauer, solo 2 and 3. Out of those three, well, collegiate. I'm not going to say collegiate because obviously collegiate's your favorite. I have to say, the prelim round, you killed it. You killed it in that prelim round. Okay.
Thank
Now that
you.
you were great the next round, but I don't know how you felt, but I felt like your prelim round was just like really hot. So we're gonna put collegiate off the table.
Yeah,
So
that's okay.
solo 2 and 3. Which one is your favorite? Which one is the biggest surprise, I guess?
The biggest surprise for me was 3 baton, not because I like thought it was my worst event, but because it was just the one that I typically don't spend as much time on. But this year I really put my effort into that one as well to balance out like all the routines that I was competing. So that one was the biggest surprise for me because I was like, oh my gosh, the extra time and effort putting into it, like, because I feel like before the routine was just juggle, juggle, toss, juggle, juggle, toss. And so my coaches and I really worked to integrate more complex releases and catches into the routine to like elevate it to the next level.
Okay.
But out of all of them, I think 2 baton is my absolute favorite. Just the like integration of both batons moving at the same time. I don't know, there's something different, and you can like really maneuver them in different ways compared to like 1 baton. And I think it's just an extra challenge trying to work out the puzzle in your brain, like what timing is going to make this work better, what timing is going to like lead into the next trick better. So I think that's why I like it. It's like a puzzle.
Okay, so I have to ask you, are you good at math?
I am. I'm going to school for mechanical engineering.
See, I think that that's a thing. If you're skilled at math, 2 and 3 baton come easier for you because they're a sense of awareness of relationships and timing and all of that. So that's just a me thing, but I truly believe that, math is part of all of that. So that's kind of cool to hear. All right,
Yeah.
Savannah. Now, let's not even talk about the tens yet. So between artistic and solo, which one's your favorite to do?
Oh, that's such a hard question. I think before this year, I would have said artistic because it's a lot like freestyle and I connect more personally with freestyle than I do any other event because I kind of put myself in whatever role I'm supposed to be portraying. But this year, solo is definitely a challenge. My coaches and I really wanted to have things that nobody has ever done before in the program. So it was really fun during quarantine to create different tricks that nobody has ever done before, and then figure out how to make that work and flow into a routine. So definitely solo. I was way more nervous to perform solo this year than I ever have been. I feel like solo has kind of been my event ever since I started twirling, even when I was really young. But this year, I think because it was so special and I got to have a lot of input into the program, it was, one, a lot more scary for me to do, but also still my favorite because I got to have that input and really make that program what it was with my coaches.
Well, I've always said from day one with you, you had your ability to place your baton exactly where you want it and catch you where you want it just elevates your proficiency to, where that's going and where it's coming down. And you were doing insanity. There's insanity in that solo, to break it down and watch what's happening. So when you started that routine in finals, were you in, we all know when it's like you're in the zone and this is happening. This is happening. Did you know when you started that solo, this is happening?
No. So to be completely honest, this is so bad. I have really no recollection of doing that program. Like, I don't remember what I was thinking. I remember being very calm in that moment, which I think is why everything works. Sometimes I get ahead of myself when I have something that's really new, and I kind of like force it instead of just being chill about it and trusting my training. But I really don't remember thinking anything during that routine. I remember talking to myself before I walked out on the floor, like, you can do this, like, you've done this a million times, why are you freaking out? So I think saying that over and over again, and also I remember saying out loud, like, God has already planned out, I'm a Christian, so God has already planned out this whole plan for you, so why are you freaking out? Trust the plan, and whatever's meant to happen is supposed to happen. And so I think that just kind of took everything out of my head, and I just did what I had done a million times over and over again in the gym. And by the time I got to the end, that's why my face was what it was, because I couldn't believe that everything I had worked for, I had done on the floor at the exact moment. It's like the fire was ignited right when I needed it to be. And that has never happened for me before. So that was definitely, like, I remember the beginning and the end. I remember thinking those two parts, but anything in the middle, it just kind of happened. I'm sorry, that's not the worst answer, but
no, that's, I think that's part of like any sport. You kind of hear athletes say, like, the key is relaxation. Okay. So, were you going for the quad, or were you going to do the triple reverse blind?
I don't think anybody else knew except for Mark, one of my coaches, that I was going to go for the quad. I had warmed it up, but I also was struggling with a quad injury, like my actual leg, not the trick. I had a severe strain in my quad. I did it the week before I left. So I was actually not training really. I mean, I would do rolls and flips, but I wasn't training full run throughs or any type of illusion tricks or gymnastics the whole week leading up to nationals.
Right.
And so that was definitely another thing that I was thinking about. But I figured by the time I got to the end, I told myself, okay, if you have a no drop all the way to the end, just do it. If the quad tears, then you tear your muscle. It's fine. So I just kind of did it and was not expecting it to be just right there, but it was.
Amazing. So Kylie, do you have a routine that you have always preserved in your memory as like the ultimate all-time best thing you've done? Or did anything at this nationals stand out that way?
I mean, I would definitely say the strut, just because it's what I did best in, and it was my favorite event going to nationals.
It's just so fun that happened for you at this stage of your career. And it was fun to watch you just be able to embody what the event is meant to be. Bauer, do you have a routine of a lifetime?
I don't know that I have my 2018 solo at World stands out, but I don't know that I would put any of them on a pedestal, because I feel like you can always put something else on top. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like it's important to never like idolize one typical performance, because you always want to outdo that one. Does that make sense?
No.
You don't want to have like a top and be always underneath it.
So I have invited your coaches to this talk. So I would like to get a little bit of their input as we're going here. So Kathy, let me start with you. Tell me about introducing strut to Kylie and how the process was.
Well, I just taught Kylie the way I teach everyone to do strut, using counts, but the new music forced me to choreograph it more like a freestyle or an artistic twirl, because I was very aware of when music was low and light, when it was bigger. And so we tried so many things, and we got the strut done, and I said, no, this part isn't working with the music. So poor Kylie, I was just kept switching things around. And I think she thought we were never going to finish the choreography for sure. And then Kylie is usually a pretty powerful strutter when she does X-strut. And so choreographing the head and the arms and the little nuances and making it soft when it was supposed to be soft and more powerful when it was supposed to be powerful was something that she had to work on, because she always moved one way. And I just said, you can't, you've got to change that up. And, she did everything I asked her to do. And that doesn't always happen with people that you coach, but she truly did everything I asked her to do. Even changing her routine right before Kylie, was it the age group or the semifinal?
Semifinals. You changed it on set 31 and I was set 34.
Yeah, I said, I made a mistake in the choreography. Your baton has to go up high. We have to do a trick here. So instead of doing what you're doing, I want you to do this. Do you think you can do it? And I said, you don't have to, but if you want to have a chance of winning this event, then I think you have to do it. And she said, okay. And she did. Didn't miss a beat, didn't get out of step. It was absolutely amazing.
And you know what? I think that that's just such a great trait of elite athletes and even elite coaches to be able to do it on the fly. Because like I even, back in the dinosaur days, remember me doing that, like changing up a presentation from one round to the next, just because it had to be done and you were able to do that. So I think for your contribution to that, Kathy, it's just really fun to watch. And you've always been a great strut coach, but to see you embrace that new music and really bring it to life with what Kylie was doing is just a great tribute to you and to Kylie's athletic ability. So Jonathan, let me ask you about Bauer. So the whole men's solo 2 and 3 baton, was any of that a surprise for you?
I think for me,
Okay, hi, too. Sorry, didn't mean to ignore you.
I think for me, the biggest surprise, I think the one that I was most nervous for was the 2 baton, because I think forever for Bauer, 2 baton has always been the event that he's been so proficient in, but has never done quite enough when it mattered the most. And so when it came to that event, he actually never made it out of his age at nationals. And so he makes it out of his age, and we're like, oh, we're pumped. This is great. Like, go to the semi, and okay, so we make it out of the semi, and now we're in the final. And I think that was the one out of all 3 events that I felt the most pressure. And it's interesting when, as the coach, you feel the pressure, then you're trying to like mask your face, and you're trying to, this is fine. It just doesn't matter. It's okay. This is the furthest you've ever made it. Meanwhile, I think I was outside. So I don't watch him compete because I get too nervous. So I was outside saying Hail Marys all during the 2 baton. And I walked back in to hear that first score get read. And from there, I think Kathy was the first person that I saw when the scores all came through. And I was like, did he win? Was that a win? She's like, yes, he won. So I think the 2 baton though was the biggest surprise, and probably the one that felt the best, only because it's the one that he's always put so much time and energy into, but it's the one that he's never, quite reached.
What's the easiest to coach him in?
So Bauer is an interesting animal. He has a very certain personality on competition days. So I would say when it comes to the solo, we kind of have that down with, knowing And I think any coach on here can attest to, like, these kids become your children on competition day, and you know what makes them tick, you know what they need, you know what they don't need, you know when it's time to get lost. And I think solo is the easiest one because he's just on autopilot. Two Baton is the one where I really have to tap into my coaching skills, and sometimes PJ has to rescue him and just get him away from me.
I understand, even as the US team coordinator for International Cup, I really start to read like coaches and athletes, and who needs the hug, and who doesn't want you anywhere near them. And you just like learn how to manage like all of these personalities and superstitions and, all of the things that they deal with. So Dale and Mark, Savannah, please tell me about, I don't care who goes first, Dale or Mark, the tens going up, or wait a minute. So Mark, talk to us first about the solo that she did.
Well, I know Savannah well enough that I knew when I saw her talking to herself and jumping up and down before she went on the floor, I nudged Dale and I said, this one's going to be great, because I just knew it. She just was getting herself in the right frame of mind. And that solo that she did, it seemed like as we worked on it, that we just kept pushing her to do something a little harder, a little bit different, or catch it here, or try. I mean, similar to what Kathy did with Kylie, it just kept changing and evolving. And I felt, I sort of felt bad for her because we kept pushing it up. It wasn't that it wasn't ever good enough. It was like, wow, what can she do? How can we make it even better? And so just seeing it all come together and gel in that final performance was just emotional and phenomenal. And, usually when you watch your students, I don't know, having been an athlete and watching my students, I get more nervous because I'm not in control. When I was an athlete, then it's up to me to make things happen on the floor, right? But when that's totally out of your control and you're watching someone else, it can be a stressful situation, especially for me. I'm sort of that way, but I felt totally at ease when she was twirling. I wasn't really, of course I was anxious, but I really felt at ease. I just knew she was in the right place to make it happen, and she did.
Yeah, it is true. When you're a coach, it's the worst. It's so out of your control, and watching it happen. So Dale, you've had, hundreds of champions, and you've had great performances, and you've had kids have tens. Mark here is, your 10 person. Tell me about this set of tens, and tell me about that moment and what made it spectacular for you.
Well, a ton of things, actually. Savannah's a rare breed. She is probably the hardest working athlete that I know. And she just is so determined to be at her very best. And so when you have a student who is so self-driven, and you don't have to bribe them, you don't have to coax them to do anything, you just simply watch them evolve and watch them want to be good, and you watch them and orchestrate the things that they want to do in order to be the best that they can be. It's a pleasure. It's absolutely a pleasure. It's a gift. You don't get those students very often, but when you do, you know that they're going to be really super good. So I had no idea she was going to get a 10, but what I was kind of really proud of her, well, a couple of things I was really proud of her for that performance is that she didn't have to do the quad at the end. She could have probably maybe gotten to 10 without it. I don't know, but she did. And for somebody to go that far and do such a great job, and know that if you did a triple at the end, you could feel very self-satisfied with that. But because she did the quad, and because of the circumstances with her leg prior to that, I was really proud of that. I thought that took a lot of guts to do that. And that was really cool. I thought that was really cool. I also felt like that with the tens, it was the perfect ending of her solo career.
That's a great statement.
Yeah. This is what better exclamation point do you have on your career than that, right? So that is, it's just amazing. That's amazing. So it's great. And a little bit of a side note, it's weird because you don't think of solo as being musical. I've gotten so many comments about her solo being musical. And then when I watch it, it was really important to me that the roll section hit on a certain part. It was really important that some of the things really hit certain things. And as she became, I mean, she's a machine, of course. She's so mechanical, she can make everything fit. But as we started really like orchestrating it with the music, it became really sort of a musical kind of endeavor. I never really thought of solo like that either. But so that was kind of cool too.
I kind of think of that as a secret weapon, that I think that when you find a solo really appealing and you find it even more than the stuff that you're watching, it's kind of that thing you didn't realize that it was musical, but it made you line up with like what you were seeing with what you were hearing. So I've always kind of thought that that was kind of a secret weapon. So you're right on the money there with it. And let alone the insanity of the things we were seeing. It was just like ridiculous. So let's go back to the takeaways from here, because I don't want you three to come across as unicorns, that like it's unattainable, that you three are the unicorns that like work hard. And yes, you work harder than anyone else. And yes, you're talented, but what is there for the people out there that are looking to achieve more? So let's go back to your training regimen. So Kylie, you've grown up in a twirling family. You've grown up in dance. Tell me your sample training regimen on any summer day prior to nationals.
I go to the gym every single day in the summer, and basically all year. The thing that I find the most fun about it is that I train with the jazz dolls, and having a group of 30, 40 girls there with you all day, every day, pushing you and making it enjoyable. If you're having a bad day, someone will always lift you up. And I think that's what keeps me going every day and makes me want to be there, be better, and just all the girls there.
Oh, that's so valuable. And then I feel like we've got to find a way to talk about, those kids that are training alone. Like, how do we do that in a situation, and how do we make it better for them? So when you're at school, you've got the other partners that you train, that you practice with the band. Do you train with them from your competitive events too during the year?
Absolutely. We go to the gym every day together. We would try to work our class schedule so we can find 2 hours to go to the gym together, because it's just more fun when you have people with you.
Yeah. And don't you think people sometimes don't think about, fix your college schedule. Fix it so that you can build your training into it, instead of being at the mercy of like, well, I have my classes this time. Instead, you choreograph it so that it can happen. So Bauer, tell me about your summer days. Tell me like from June until nationals, what's your typical training regimen?
Yeah, so mine's pretty much the same as Kylie, and I also twirl with a team, the Show Twirlers. It's John and PJ's team out of Pennsylvania. So I actually came home for the summer to train for nationals. And luckily my job let me work online, so I could clock in and clock out in Pennsylvania and still train with my coaches. So that was a big plus. And then like Kylie was saying, we work our schedules so that we can ensure we can practice throughout the week, on top of the band practicing too, so we can maintain ourselves.
And do you have access to facilities at Arizona to train in?
That is a good point. So we actually, one day I got invited to learn how to spin rifle from one of the guard members. And they took me into the gym, and I looked up and I was like, Kylie could quad in here. Kylie could quad in here. And I was like, can I get into here every single day? And that is actually, when COVID hit, they turned it into a COVID testing center. So our daily gym was no longer available. And the basketball arena is at the mercy of like volleyball, basketball, all the other sports. So most of the days we were outside of the stadium in the blistering Arizona heat, trying to get through a solo or two. But we actually trained outside in our sneakers instead of in like a typical gym with our jazz shoes. So that was my biggest challenge, because I've always had somewhere to twirl inside. And I think that's what kind of builds like your speed. But being outside, it really forced me to practice my high tricks on like cement instead of a wooden floor.
And didn't it force you to be prepared for optimal conditions? That if you could do it outside in hard conditions, by the time you got in optimal conditions, this is a piece of cake.
Yeah, it's like I could do this with my eyes closed.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So Savannah, tell us about your training regimen from summer, the entire summer.
So kind of the beginning of this year, I was outside just like everybody else. And then one of my coworkers actually works for the athletic department at Middle Tennessee State University. And I was able to get a membership at the rec center there, which is high enough to do like a spin triple. So I was fortunate enough to be able to be training in a gym all summer. But what makes it a little bit more difficult is I teach a lot of camps throughout the summer, so I'm constantly gone. But luckily, those camp directors are really great about making sure that their instructors are getting practice time in, whether it's inside or outside.
And didn't you teach a camp all day and then say, set aside the time for you that you were going to train away from that?
Yes, so sometimes that would be at 6 a.m. in the morning, or it would be after teaching for 8 to 10 hours. You just have to decide what your goal is, and if you're going to go for your goal, then you have to be dedicated enough to do whatever it takes, even if it means twirling when you're completely exhausted or twirling outside in the dark. If you can do it there, you can do it anywhere.
Well, it sounds like you all have just like, you figured out a way that I will find a way to make this work. So let's go back to parents. And because there are parents that say like, I can't get her to practice, or, we have the double-edged sword. We have the kids that are successful because their parents have set it up for them that way, or they have pushed them, or we have the parents who are frustrated that can't find a way, to get their kid motivated. So Kylie, again, you're a twirling family. Did you ever feel pressured to be great at twirling, or how did your parents, grandma, aunt make it a positive influence to make you love it?
I love the whole twirling atmosphere, like the family atmosphere at the gym. I love having my mom and my grandma just sit right in front of me because they're so knowledgeable. My grandma opened the studio like 54 years ago, so she knows so much. Then my mom's owns the studio now. So just being able to be with them and them helping me is just the greatest gift of all.
Yeah, you're in a wonderful situation with a wonderful legacy for the sport. So Bauer, were your parents involved in the twirling world, and how did they get you and your sister set up for success?
They actually were not. My sister was the first person to twirl in our family, and she was doing it for high school majorettes. And then through PJ's camp that she had as Penn State's feature twirler, that's how we got introduced into competitive baton, and we've been with them ever since. But my mom has always said, if you're not having fun, I don't want you to do it. So she never pressured us to keep going. It's always been like at our own discretion. So I think that's super interesting because we were never like, it was like, if you're not having fun anymore or you're not enjoying what you're doing, then maybe it's time to stop.
Did they ever have to say, Bauer, have you practiced?
Not necessarily, because I was usually the one who's like, I'm gonna go practice. Can you drive me to the gym?
My gosh, there's so many parents that are gonna hate you guys. Okay. All right. No, but I think that's it. The key is your own. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody
Exactly.
can do it for you. Okay. So Savannah, did your mom twirl? Did she say you're going to practice or else? Like, how did this happen?
So my mom did not twirl. It was a complete like random act of God that I became a baton twirler when I was 3. She happened to take me to a random dance studio in Kansas City where I'm from, and she wanted to put me in dance class. Like, had no intentions of putting me in twirling at all. On the first day of like the preschool dance class I was in, the instructor Heidi Jacobson, who went on to become my first coach, stuck a baton in my hand, and I instantly fell in love. And so if she hadn't taken me to that specific dance class, I never would have started twirling. So my mom didn't know anything about twirling whatsoever. So it was kind of like we were learning together, which was an interesting process. My mom can be very intense at sometimes, but it's always had to be my choice to want to go to the gym. She's never forced me to go and practice or call and ask me if I practiced that day. She gets intense because she knows what I'm capable of and wants to make sure that I know what I'm capable of. And so that's really when she is kind of more like a helicopter mom, but I wouldn't have it any other way. She pushes me to become the best person that I can possibly be, both in twirling and outside of twirling. And so it's kind of an interesting relationship to kind of grow up with her in twirling, or both learning the ins and out of the sport.
Well, what I'm hearing is all 3 of you have parents that are very engaged. And I don't think that you necessarily have to be a parent who has the knowledge about the activity itself, but I think you have to be a parent that sets your child up for success. So if that means you find a path to facilities, to coaches, to training, to all of that. None of you, obviously, as small kids, would have been able to do that. So, Kylie, did you ever want to quit?
Of course, you have your days where you're like, oh my gosh, like, I don't think I can do this today. But in my case, I have my mom here and I have my grandma, and they're like, come on, like, you can do it. Just push through the day and it will be okay. So,
Okay, Bauer, did you ever want to quit?
Like Kylie, there's always those days where that roll just isn't rolling or that flip is just not rotating into your hand. But I enjoy the challenge and like those rough days because it's part of the sport and it's what makes it so enjoyable in the end because you know like what you put into it. So I don't think I've ever wanted to like quit. Not
But
yet.
what about, when you kind of say, I want like a normal life? I think those are the hardest times when you're in middle school and you're in high school and your friends are doing other things. Did you ever say, God, I just want a normal life. I want a summer. Like I'm a grown up that still hasn't had a summer.
I know, right? I think I have definitely had points where I'm like, I wish I could just like go to this water park or go to this amusement park. But like Kylie, I don't think I would have it any other way because Baton has given me so many opportunities and like life lessons that are applicable to everyday life that it's never really crossed my mind to be like, I wish I would have done this instead of twirling. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's no regrets.
Hanging at the mall or winning the Miller Cup. I don't know. Like,
right. The latter seems a little.
I don't know. So,
but I graduate in December, so life is quickly catching up. So I've had many conversations with John, like some breakdowns over the phone, like, Jonathan, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna still maintain my training as I'm searching for a job? Or like this past semester, I actually had 2 part-time jobs on top of school, on top of baton twirling. So it was a very trying semester for me. And it was really eye-opening because of quarantine and no like baton contests, why I was putting in so much work and effort for the desired outcome. Because in 10 years, I'm not going to be able to turn around and say, I'm going to twirl again. It has to be like now, or your body or the circumstance or your like full-time job is just going to get in the way. So I think that's kind of my motivator right now.
okay. And I'm listening to all of you, just looking at you're able to make the sacrifices and it's so worth it. And so Savannah, you've made tremendous sacrifices. You've moved to different places. You've all of that. First of all, was there ever a moment you wanted to quit?
I don't think there was like a moment where I was like, I want to quit. But after the 2018 World Championships, I definitely was ready to be done. Because I was studying abroad. I was getting to be just living in Europe is a whole experience in itself. So I kind of got that feeling of being normal. Was not training. I was not working out. Like I kind of got a taste of what it's like when you don't have a sport that you're involved with or a hobby that you're involved with. And it was the opportunity to go and visit people as a normal human, like twirling friends, that really reignited the fire in me. And so during that time when I was living abroad and being that so-called normal human, I missed it. I missed it more than anything and knew that I wasn't ready to be done. I had still so much to give back. And I knew that I could accomplish more than what I had already done so far. So a little bit of yes and no, like I kind of got a taste of that normal lifestyle, but then that also being in that normal lifestyle, it brought me back to twirling. So I'm grateful that I had taken 6 months off and so-called quit twirling,
Right.
And come back, and it made me a much better twirler than I ever thought that I could be.
So that break reinvigorated you. And so I look at the 3 of you thriving over COVID. And I think that the positive of this is you can look at you 3 are examples of goals accomplished in a time when the world was trying to figure out what goals even were. And so, to have the faith that like, I'm just going to keep working because something's going to be out there. Someday it's going to come back and I'm going to be in the best shape that I can be in. So tell me about your future, and then we'll open it to questions after that. Kylie, what's up for you in your twirling? So the patience over COVID between, MBTA worlds being pushed back and WBTF worlds and the merger of the organizations. There's just all of this out there waiting. What's in the future for you, Kylie?
Well, I'm currently a junior ASU, so I'll be twirling on the field more, and I'm definitely still competing. I still have so many goals that I want to reach, and I will continue working my hardest until I reach all those goals.
That's is so inspiring. Thank you. And for you to be able to do that over COVID and to just hang in there and, your best is yet to come, maybe. So, I think that that's what we've seen happen. Bauer, what's up with the future for you?
Yes, I think I mentioned it before, but this is going to be my last semester at ASU. So last fall, last performance on the field. I'm going to cry. No, I'm kidding. But after that, then the job hunt begins, and yeah, training as always, trying to push through. I haven't decided like how much longer I'm going to twirl though. We'll see. That's an open-ended question for me.
The line can move. We've all seen the line can move in this time. And so, Savannah, we've heard that was your last solo, and what a way to go. So what are you looking for in the next year or two?
So in the next year, the end of 2022 will be my last year on the competition side. So I'm hoping to make the transition and start the judging process for both organizations and give back to Baton Twirling as much as I can through teaching. But as far as going into more my adult life, I am looking to go back into journalism in some type of capacity, whether that's in the news industry or in PR or in social media. There's so much that you can do with a journalism degree. So I'm hoping in the next 5 years, I'll be working my way to New York. I want to eventually work in New York City. So that would be the goal eventually. But for as far as my competitive career, I have 1 more year left in me to kind of give it my all and leave nothing behind. So
just remember, look at Simone Biles, hanging out there for the Olympics and like, we're having it, we're not having it. Here we go. And, there's just to watch athletic goals is just such a statement on life. So I'm going to open the gallery, and if anyone has a question, I want you to just go ahead and speak. Go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and speak. If we don't have any questions, there's plenty of things that I have to talk with Kylie, Bauer, and Sarra, Savannah about. So does anyone have any burning questions at the moment? Take this opportunity. If not, then I want to start with Kylie again. So how do your coaches bring out your best? Are you a person that needs to be nurtured through it, that needs to be pushed through it, that needs to be tested? What brings out the best in you from your coaches?
When I work with Kathy, and especially during roles, she always tries to explain like the physics of the role while I'm trying to learn it, because I'm an engineering major, so that really makes sense in my brain. And then with like other routines, I really like to just have a coach in front of me correcting me. I'm not one to really like to be by myself that much. I really like to have like interaction between me and my coaches, whoever it may be, Kathy, my mom, my grandma.
And do you want that person with you until the moment you take the floor?
Mostly. If I'm not like feeling my best, sometimes I just like to be by myself, just get my head in the right place before I go. But at this past nationals, I've really liked when Kathy was with me, warming me up, and then putting me on the floor.
Okay. Everyone has their rituals and what works for them and what makes them feel good. Bauer, how do your coaches bring out the best in you?
Like Jonathan said, I can be a little bit of a time bomb on competitions just because the nerves get the best of me sometimes. So I like to have coaches with me as I'm warming up, and then just to be there, not really any feedback as I'm like the set before taking on the floor, just so I can get like the tricks that make me nervous, practice them right before I go on the floor, and then get in my own headspace. And then for them to be there, we always do a clap before we go onto the floor. So that's like my ritual, I'd say. And then I take the floor. But yeah, I like to have somebody there, but just kind of there for the presence, not necessarily to interact. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And tell me about training in a lesson situation. Can you be difficult? Are you easy? Are you receptive? Do you challenge your coaches? Like, how's your relationship in your learning?
So even during COVID, we always bounce back and forth. He'll say, try this. I'll say, maybe if I try it this way, it'll be a little bit better. Maybe if we try it this way, it'll like flow better. So it's kind of like a two-way street with us, with Jonathan and I. I think that works the best. Even if he's doing over a Zoom call, making his dinner, which is actually how the 3-baton came about. But I think I'm mostly receptive to criticism and like new material.
It sounds like
Jonathan can speak up if he thinks otherwise.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the three of you have all obviously become old enough and talented enough that it's a collaboration of sorts. And so when you were a child, at what point did it turn into, Savannah, I'm going to go to you. At what point does it turn into a collaboration with the athlete and the coach versus the athlete being a sponge and just soaking it all up?
I don't know if I remember there being like a specific age that I was. I remember the first couple lessons with Dale and Mark. It took us like 3 hours to do the first 8 count. And that's still true today. Like, we will spend 8 hours in the gym and only get like 30 seconds done, which is fine. It works out in the end. But I think as I really transitioned into the senior women's division, it kind of became more of a collaboration, especially when I got to college. And so that's been a really fun aspect of when we're training together, is they're teaching me how to choreograph a routine while choreographing my routine, if that makes sense. And so it's been fun to be able to work with them and kind of learn how to teach while I'm still learning as an athlete.
Oh, I think 100%. I think that you 100% become a better coach when you are still training as more an intelligent adult, and you can then apply that to the coaching world. So let me go to your coaches. So Kathy, tell me about, what is the line for you between students just needing to be a sponge and versus when you accept their input as part of a collaboration?
It kind of depends on their maturity level and how well they know themselves, whether something feels comfortable to them or doesn't feel comfortable. So it's not happening. They're not executing it properly because it's uncomfortable. And it's different, I think, with every twirler. It depends on their skill level, their age, their ability to work on their own and know themselves and their twirling. Because sometimes Kylie will say, "No, that's not going to happen out on the floor. I'm not going to do that." So then, we just say, "Okay, well, we'll come up with something else." So, they pretty much know themselves, and you just have to trust them.
And so part of that is the training process and their technique as they've gone along and building that. So Jonathan, tell me about the students who are the most teachable. Like, how does Bauer compare to those that have been the most coachable?
Yeah, I think the couple of things that I love most about Bauer as far as being coachable are that he's completely adaptable to any situation. So, there have been times where you work with athletes that, they need to be in a 40-foot ceiling, and they need to have, the right lights, a certain floor, a certain whatever. And Bauer has been the person that, I'll say, Bauer, I had a cancellation. We're going to be at the studio, which is, you could touch the ceiling with your hand if you wanted to. We're just going to do short program and rolls. Yeah, that's fine. I'll be there in an hour. He can only, the Arizona time difference, I think, is 3 hours, and him and Kylie can get into the arena at 7:30 on a Monday night, which is 7:30 for me, but 4:30 for him. And that's like mid family dinner, and I'm like,
time.
Yeah, it's dinner. It's bath time for the 2-year-old. It's normal life stuff on a Monday night, but he's completely fine taking a 3-baton lesson while I'm chopping tomatoes with my HelloFresh meal. There have been times I've had like the knives in my hand, like literally chopping dinner. I'm like, well, can you throw this one and catch this one? And he's never once complained about when our life kind of gets in the way. He's completely, I think the second thing I love about Bauer and his parents is that they have trusted the process from day one. They have never gotten in the weeds. They've never questioned us. They've never really asked many details about what we're doing. They've just, you're the coaches, you're the experts. This is what we're paying you to do. And I think that's probably been the easiest thing about Bauer and his family. And the same goes with his sisters. They've just been so easy to work with because the parents have trusted us from the beginning.
Well-
and great things can happen out of that.
Yeah. And so PJ, don't you think like adaptability, coachability, and trusting the process are even almost more valuable than talent?
It's everything. It's
Yeah.
absolutely everything. And I just noticed, you know, my mom has had a studio my entire life, and you just see so many twirlers come through, and the inability to adapt has been the obstacle that has kept them from their goals. And I think that watching Bauer and just some of the, well, Savannah and Kylie too, like they do whatever it takes. I mean, it's lessons in the streets.
Savannah Miller was on my cement slab like 3 weeks before nationals. Dodging Ava, like babysitting her while I was working out.
and I, you know, and I've seen the interaction between Kylie and Bauer and the way that they, like they said, they're adjusting their schedules. And I just think they take it to another level of, do I want this? Yes. And then the line stops and they're willing to do whatever they need to do. And the respect level for the coaches is so high that you want to give them more, and you want to get up at 5 a.m. and go with them to the gym, and you want to figure out that he needs a Dr. Pepper and he needs his peanut butter Nature Valley Crunch Bar. Like you take it to that next step because you see that mutual respect for one another.
He starts fading around 7 p.m. and final started at what, 10 p.m. So I knew it was an uphill battle.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's it's a whole game of the day of like rest and feeding and that whole process of how you do that. So Dale and Mark,
coaches,
right? Oh, totally. So Dale and Mark, you know, what's interesting in this entire conversation, not one thing has been said about the competition. And I think that when we look at athletes of this level, it is about them and the process and their accomplishment. It's not about who they're against. So when you're training Savannah, Dale, tell me about how her adaptability, coachability makes it so you can just focus on her and no one else that would ever be in the competition.
Interesting. You know, it's really important to me that, well, first of all, let me say that, you know, Dick Button from figure skating, he always said, you know, figure skating is the loneliest sport in the world because you're out there by yourself. So I learned a lot from that, knowing that I had to instill in my students that you're out there, you got to make these decisions, you got to be accountable to yourself, and you're in control, not me. So you've got to be comfortable, you've got to know what you're doing, you've got to be comfortable with it, you got to be physically, mentally ready to go. So how many times in a lesson, and Savannah can attest to this, how many times will I say, are you comfortable with this? Is this comfortable? Is this going to happen for you every time? What does it feel like to you? You know, the feel of a routine and of any routine is so important because it has to become, I know it's a cliche, but it has to become one with the athlete that you can reproduce it at any time. This is why it's really important that athletes own their routine, you know, so they can become accountable. And I think that Savannah is a really good example of that. She can do and has performed and practiced literally every single surface, every single facility that there is under all kinds of adverse conditions, and somehow makes it happen. I remember a situation in Italy where she had to do a routine out on the grass in some soccer match. Well, the other twirlers were just beside themselves. They couldn't do it. She's out there just made it happen. So when you take that ownership out onto the performance floor, then you own that routine. And I think that that's really important for coaches. It has been for me to instill that in the athletes.
Oh, it's just wonderful to hear because I think it's so important for younger athletes and parents to hear growing up about just so many things that we've been able to touch on here. So Mark, let's go back to competition because we know you run a program and you know how much parents can get whacked out about the competition and the judges and the scores and all of that. How do you eliminate that as a factor in the training of your athletes and eventually to the goal of like a Savannah? How do you get that out of there for them so that they understand it's about no one else but their own child and the growth and the progress?
That's the difficult part of having a club or running with groups that we probably all face. And that's that you don't give it any energy. You don't give it any, you don't feed it. So when parents want to take it that way, you turn it around and focus it on their child. Where are they? And, progressionally, where are they? Where are they lacking? One of the things I like to do with kids as they're developing, and actually my daughter who was injured in Florida, had a great opportunity that, nobody wants to be injured. They want to compete. But how often do you get to take a step back and look at your competition and watch them and evaluate them as a judge would and see their strengths and see their weaknesses and that type of thing? So rather than, it's not about the competition, it's how you can improve yourself, but you can help yourself improve by understanding where you fit within sort of your groupings. And so I like to have them just be self-aware that way and set goals. Most of the kids, especially as they become intermediate advanced, have their own little book, progress book, where they write down their success rates, what they're doing, how often, and making that the focus and seeing improvement there will produce results of some sort on the floor. But if you're just looking around you all the time, then there's too many distractions, and then you're losing yourself and all of that. And so I just try to instill that in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so good to hear and so good to be passed on. So before we finish tonight, I want to do one last roundup. The people on this call have contributed so much to this activity, and where we have landed today is just such a landmark compared to where we started. Twirling has a rich history, and we can't ever negate the history of the majorettes and of the lines, because that foundation is important to where we've come. So we hope to go further, and we see the growth, and we see in a year when things could have been stagnant, when things could have stopped, when our organization and our sport could have really suffered. Instead, I think we've seen great growth. So Kylie, in the next 5 to 10 years, what is your hope for your sport of baton twirling?
My ultimate dream for baton twirling is to make it to the Olympics. I think that baton twirling and gymnastics have similarities, and I think that one day we could be an Olympic sport and baton twirlers could be Olympians. I think that would be the greatest thing for us, and we get so much more coverage, like the media. I think we'd get a lot more twirlers from it too.
Totally. And obviously your athletic ability, and it's just one of those things. If people could just see it, look what she does. That's the thing. When people just, we are our own worst fans, in that when twirlers watch twirlers, we don't always appreciate it as much as people from the outside. So Bauer, what is your hope in the next 5 to 10 years, especially as a male twirler that has really made a statement on the collegiate scene and on the international and national scene in twirling? What is your hope for twirling and maybe men in the sport as a whole?
Yeah. So even just being like a collegiate twirler as a male and having 2 at ASU, I think we have great representation for a sport. And I hope that serves as a gateway for more male twirlers to enter into the scene to really develop our categories. Even with Joel being on AGT, like that's a national stage, and that's like a huge deal for men in the sport, because it shows what the top athletes can do and what you can accomplish and the opportunities that it presents. And I think it's a great way to get everyone started in baton twirling and to even develop the organization as a whole.
Yeah,
Just
and
to have diversity.
the more we support and lift each other and promote each other, the more it's out there. So I think, the saying, I always tell my students that, like, just by lighting someone else's candle, it doesn't put yours out. So the more we can light everyone's candles, the more it shines a light on the entire sport as a whole. And Savannah, what's your hope in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the biggest thing for me is developing the more community level of twirling. Even just where I live right now, there is literally no twirling whatsoever, and beginner and intermediate twirlers are the future of our sport. So I think building those programs on a local level and then eventually building that into the Olympic system would be an ultimate goal, just growing the sport even more and making the normal human side of life more aware that our sport is still existing and it's thriving.
Exactly. And you know, we don't find the Kylies and the Savannahs and the Bowers unless we plant a lot of seeds. And the more seeds we can plant to build the grassroots of the organization, the more we have to find. And I think that there's just so many opportunities in parade groups and in corps and in teams and just fun recreational activities. When I hear your joy from all of you, like Kylie, when you talk about a gym full of 30 or 40 twirlers, the joy is from that sense of community and the kinship. And I think the more we can do that and not be the lonely twirler in the gym and spread the word, the more we all grow. And the more we find those moments of just pure joy. You know, I was very fortunate in 24 hours that I got to experience the finals and watch all of you, and just that sense of joy for someone else. And I came home and my husband happened to have a thing happen that, again, the joy for his accomplishment and for us to be able to have that feeling, just, to me, can't be recreated. And those moments at nationals were just, I don't know if we cherished them more because we didn't have them, or I'm just going to say you guys were that spectacular. There were so many spectacular things that happened. So I want to thank all of you for tonight, and Savannah, Kylie, Bauer, coaches. Thank you for taking some time to sit down tonight and spread the word, because what happened last week needed to like continue living into the next week and beyond. And I think we just need to embrace that joy and know that we can keep planting the seeds to keep finding that in all of our activities and all of our sport. So thank you everyone for coming on tonight. Have a great week and renew yourselves, rejuvenate, and let's get ready for another great season.
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.